everybody, and welcome back to the Northern Celtic podcast. We're here with another episode today. I'm joined with Isaac.
Hello, everyone.
Dan.
Hello, everyone.
And this week's guest star, Chairman of Northern Celtic, Paul Mossy.
Good evening. And player, don't forget.
Oh yeah, and player, sorry. Anyway, I will thank you very much for tuning in again this week. I will hand you over to Isaac.
Fantastic, brilliant. Thank you, Mossy, for coming on as well. That's brilliant to have you're our first official guest if you don't count the three of us all on here together. So yeah, thank you for coming on. I think we'll start off straight away because I knew you were coming on. I thought I'll go back into the files and see what I could find of results. And the furthest the results went back was only to the season of 2012 and 2013, which I found your name on a result there, which I'll put it up on the podcast screen now, and it is a 3-0 win away against Taverners Reserves. You made an appearance from the bench. But what I found was really interesting about this result is it was played on a Thursday night for some reason. I'm not sure why. Not really Sunday League, but...
yeah, that's got a classic sort of end of season, cram the fixtures in before the final day feel to it, I think.
Blimey, brilliant. But can you, do you remember when you signed for the club? Like, do you remember, like, what year was your first season?
So, at this point, I'm going to make an apology because I'm a typical bloke in so much that any relationship I'm in, I forget anniversaries. I don't know how long I've been with anyone. I literally, facts and figures, I'm just the anti-stato, I'm afraid. So, in short, I'm pretty sure I was 20, maybe 21 when I made my debut. I do remember it. By the way, that means I've been with the club 20 or 21 years.
Blimey.
Which I'm well aware is almost as old as you, Isaac, and probably is older than Dan. You were literally just glimpsing your daddy's eyes when I started with Northern.
Blimey.
I do remember my debut. I can tell you a bit about that if you want.
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
Because it resonated with me when I heard Cameron talking. I think I'm right in saying, Cam, that you hadn't played sort of 11-a-side or certainly not adult football.
No, definitely not. I hadn't played since primary school before I came to Celtic.
Sure. And I can certainly relate to that. I mean, I remember playing literally in primary school, all that sort of 5-a-side, 6-a-side, 7-a-side. I played a little bit socially on maybe like Tuesday night, Monday night, 5-a-side, 6-a-side. And the manager or certainly my manager at the time, I worked in retail in Dixon's many moons ago, which is now Curry's Digital. You'll shake heads if you haven't got a clue what I'm talking about, British. And my manager then was a player for Northern who went on to become manager, James Hamilton. Again, I don't think any of you know him. He moved away several years ago now. And he asked me to come along. I signed for the club. I remember making my debut. It was on the pitch at Gainsborough with the overhanging tree as you walk up.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Gainsborough.
Yeah. And I remember being thrown on for the last 10 or 15 minutes, and I was so excited and so nervous. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I remember running around, literally chasing shadows, not touching the ball, feeling like my heart was going to explode because I was so unfit and so out of breath. I just didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I loved it. And as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. Literally, quite easily, it's been... But it's like I say, leaving a legacy, isn't it? I mean, so linking on to that, after joining to the club, how has your time been at the club since when you started, when you were sort of 20 years old? How have you found it as kind of your experience? Because obviously, if that's your first experience of 11-a-side football, how's that been over the years?
Well, I have to say, I mean, in hindsight, looking back, I joined Sunday football at a time when it really was a different era and culturally very different. I don't want to sound like the typical old bloke of the team. I know we've got a couple of them. Maybe Mickey's the main old bloke of the team. Not sound like the old bloke. No, the old days were the best, but I wouldn't say that it was the best, but they were different. Sunday football, it really was it was your Sunday. It wasn't a couple of hours on Sunday morning. It was your day. You would turn up, you'd play. The whole family would go back to the pub, and we'd spend the rest of the day there. So culturally, that's just how it was. And there were also two leagues, Sunday leagues running. There was the licensed trade league, and then there was the ISFL, as it is now. And eventually, after a few seasons, the licensed trade league folded, and we also had an influx of teams into the ISFL, which was then the only Sunday football league around Ipswich. Back in the day, we had, I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying we had like a Premier Division and 9 divisions beneath that. Yes.
Whoa!
All of which had an absolute abundance of teams in them. And as long as I could remember back in the day, for many, many years, we had 2 teams. Up until quite recently, we've had 2 teams, as you may well know.
Yeah.
Culturally, very, very different. But ultimately, it's about the 90 minutes. It's all about the playing, and then, that's one thing. But then, obviously, for me, not being very good at football and not getting many minutes, certainly in the early year or 2, I was trying about the emotional side of it, getting back to the pub and having a laugh and a few beers.
That's definitely the side that I think I'd like to bring back more, because I think that's a really important part of the team, is the social side of it as well, especially at this level. I think we definitely need to try and get that back this year. I think try and find a home, as it were, as a pub. We need a place, don't we, to kind of re-resonate all of that kind of old feelings.
We do. I mean, it's something historically that we have generally always had, but for the last few years we have struggled to find anywhere to call home. We've found pubs that we've sort of attached ourselves to, but again, that sounds like I'm harking back to the old days, but back in the day, we were sponsored by the Woolpack public house in Ipswich for many years, and we became very, very close to the landlord and landlady there, and they would happily write us a cheque for £500 at the start of every season. They would supply us with food after the game. Without question, we would host barbecues as fundraisers for the club. It was just so easy and so well supported, and there was no effort involved, because people just understood it's what you did when you were part of Sunday football. You would chip in and you would contribute, socially, financially, and in every way to the club.
It's amazing to hear, and like I say, I feel like there's still aspects of that, but it would be good to have some of it back. Cam, you've got the next question. Do you want to fire away?
So we've talked about your experiences coming back to the pitch and on the pitch, but how would you say your experiences have been as the chairman of the club and heading up the committee overall in your years here?
So I've been chairman, I think, for, again, forgive me, I'm probably wrong, but I think for about 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure that game you pulled out of the archives, Isaac, I'm pretty sure I was chairman then, looking at the names on there.
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure I was. So it must be 7 or 8 years, I reckon. It's gone full circle at least a couple of times. And when I talk about the club, I talk about the club as a whole as opposed to on the pitch. And what I would say is that the club is only ever as good as the people off the pitch. Because
I agree with that.
What happens on the pitch obviously is relevant, but there is no club without the people that do the hard work off the pitch. And I hasten to add, I'm not necessarily including myself greatly in that, because the people that really keep the club together and move it forward are the people that actually do the week in, week out running, the manager, assistant managers, secretary, especially very important, treasurer. And if I'm honest, the chairman, as grand a role as it is, it's really just a way of sort of overseeing and sort of maybe pointing the club in the right general direction and giving an opinion. We've always had, or tried to have, a strong committee, an involved committee, and we're very, very fortunate, especially now, I think more than ever at the club, that we've got a great mixture of experience and youth. You 3 guys, obviously, coming in now, committee members, fantastic. As far as I'm concerned, everyone in the club should want to be a part of the committee, because any more commitment than that. You know, being involved in what happens off the pitch as well as on.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, we've sorry to go back to your question, and I'm rambling a little bit, but in short, I've seen it. I've seen I've seen seasons where we've been excellent on the pitch and very poor off it in terms of running the club and moving it forward and being committed for a number of reasons. Could be personal, could be time, could be a lack of enthusiasm. We're all human beings. I've also seen seasons where we've been absolutely appalling on the pitch, but off the pitch we've been great, and the club's been stable. And I would take a more sort of rounded overview of how I think the club is getting on. It doesn't always equate to how we're getting on the pitch, if that makes sense. Not to say I lack ambition, but ultimately without the club being in existence, you can't have success on the pitch.
That's true, yeah. And I think you almost need to find that fine line. You need to find that balance, don't you, of having both sides of that, to have the off the pitch and on the pitch, which is easier said than done.
Yeah.
But Dan.
Yeah.
So Mossy, because you're as well as being the chairman and player, you're also a ref in Sunday League. What would your best Sunday League moment be, being a player and as a ref?
So probably as a player, as a personal highlight, I'd say probably about 12 or 13 years ago, I had a significant run in the first team, when we had two sort of decent teams, and the first team were a good team, and I just ran into a good vein of form, and I managed to. I mean, back in the day, you had two teams. The idea of the two teams were that you would rather sit on the bench for the first team and get your chance than you would play 90 minutes for the reserves, if you look at it that way, because you aspire to play for the first team.
Yeah, definitely.
And if I got called up to the bench of the first team, it was a real accolade for me. And then I managed to actually make an impression from the bench, and then got a few starts and maintained that place. So to have a consistent run with the first team, bearing in mind I'm not the most gifted footballer, personally I was really proud of that, and I didn't feel that I was out of place. I felt that I earned that right, and I took the opportunity. Obviously, a lot of people will view that differently in terms of a lot of people, understandably, would rather play 90 minutes for the Resis than play 20 minutes for the first. And again, I think culturally that's just how it's changed a little bit. Often teams that have two clubs, they're almost run as, two teams, clubs that have two teams, they often run almost as like two clubs within one in that respect. But that, again, back in the day, it wasn't the case. So as a team highlight, I would say, again, can't recall. I remember where it was. It was at Gainsborough. I remember the pitch it was on. But I reckon it's about maybe 8 or 9 years ago. On the final day of the season, we were 3-0 down with 10 minutes to go. We had to win the league, and I say 3-0 down, 10 minutes to go, it was all over. And very sadly, although ultimately amazingly for us, one of our players shattered his knee. Sounds harsh, but it was such a horrific injury that they abandoned the game. And the guy was, I remember him well, Win Williams. He was an old boy at the time, so he must be 60 odd now. Lovely guy, super guy. He went off in an ambulance, was in a bad way. Made a full recovery, thankfully, although I never played again.
That's good.
He was pretty much at the end of his career anyway, by his own admission.
Going out on bang.
Yeah, what he did, that self-sacrificing injury, not that it was planned, enabled us to then obviously have to replay that game. The FA decided that we should replay, or the league decided we should replay it, although we were 3-0 down with 10 minutes to go. And because it had been replayed, I think I'm right in saying it was like the only fixture outstanding. Obviously, we needed to win it to win the league. So you had the team that were then presently top came and watched, obviously supported the other team. There's a lot of people watching, and in a nutshell, we won. As I recall, we won in quite dramatic circumstances as well, last couple of minutes.
Fantastic.
And we won the league with that. So yeah, it was bittersweet. Obviously, didn't want that to happen to our guy, but so I just remember that being real proper jubilation and proper beers, and yeah, I mean that's a highlight. One other massive highlight would be the tour that I went on, but I suspect you may have a question about that.
Yeah, that's a good tandem there. Right, my next question was obviously I know that the club went on a couple of trips. It was always something I was really interested in. I thought it would be something really good to do if the guys were up for it and we could organise it. But there was one obviously that went to Belgium, but there was one that you can remember a bit more of it, which is when they went to Amsterdam. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I can tell you what I'm allowed to do, because clearly what happened on tour.
Tour stays on tour.
Stays on tour. That's what happens in Dam stays in Dam. So we went to Amsterdam. We through the connections we had at the time, we managed to hire out the Peterborough United team coach, along with driver.
Who's came in the package?
This coach was all leather interior, DVD player. DVD player back in the day. It was there was a new thing, a DVD player. So just moved on from VHS tape. We had I think we had a card table at the back. We obviously loaded it up with beers. We had pub cards. It was just great, and we went across on the ferry. And ultimately, it was I think a 3-night stay. Got to Amsterdam, went out on the lash. As I said, few tales to be told, but I'll give you one, probably the highlight of the tour for anyone that was there, and I'll keep it clean. Let's just say there was there was a young one of our younger members of the playing squad attended with us, and he was very excited to spend his well-earned euros, let's say, in a certain part of Amsterdam.
Right, yeah, I'm with you.
Not just on beer, needless to say, so something a little bit beyond that. And like the ladies, and essentially what happened was he was very, very excited about the fact that he had made an excellent purchase and had a great time. And the next day, when sober, we were all walking through the area in Amsterdam, well known, and he happened to point out the stunning purchase that he'd made. It's a little bit too.
No, you're right. You carry on.
Okay.
You carry on.
Very, very delightful lady. Let's call her. She'd offered him some sort of special massage, but I'm not going to go into massive detail about that. Anyway, needless to say, even stone cold sober in the light of day, he appeared to be the only person to not realise that it wasn't a lady that had performed this massage.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Let's just say that this lady, as he referred to her, had hands the size of shovels and a very distinctive Adam's apple.
That's fantastic.
To this day, prior to this podcast, I imagined, to this day he is unaware of that. He was very young and very naive, and no one had the heart to tell him. And like I say, I've maybe broken it, but I haven't named anyone, so it could be anyone.
True. I think that's very you didn't cross anything there.
Absolutely. On to the football very briefly, because that was the reason we went, I guess. We played, I think it's FC Utrecht they were called, and they were like a semi-professional club, and we literally played their like 7th team or something, and they absolutely annihilated us. I mean, and they were so gracious and kind and lovely, wonderful hosts. They had a magnificent barbecue out and bar and everything. It was just fantastic hosts, lovely clubhouse, and they literally, the Dutch sort of sexy football, it was. I mean, literally, their 7th team, and they were just strolling pass after pass after pass, and just I think it was about 8-1, 8-2 in the end, and they were in second gear. And we were all completely blown out of our backside.
So it definitely sounds like a really good trip. I'll now say Cameron with the next question.
So you've played many games over your time, but is there probably the game that you mentioned is going to be a viable answer for this question, but what would you say is overall the toughest opponent that you've had of all time?
So, again, my footballing life is a bit of a blur. I'm just grateful if I ever get any time on the pitch. I go from having very few games in a season to playing almost a full season. In recent years, obviously, it's been less and less. But I would say, just because it's very recent and I don't recall ever feeling that way, that the cup game we had this season,
Hardy FC.
It was at Hardy FC. I mean,
the one at Felixstowe.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I played at centre back that game, and bearing in mind we lost, what was the score that game?
15-4, I believe.
Bearing in mind we conceded 15 goals, and they had numerous other chances. Playing centre back, I think I touched the ball probably 4 or 5 times the whole game, and the quality of the crosses they were putting in, and the fitness levels and the energy, it literally felt like we were treading, treacle the whole game.
Yeah.
And
they were something else, weren't they? They were just.
I've got to say, I felt better actually when we all stood outside the changing rooms. They all came out in their senior division tops and extremely athletic, and cranes and all that, loads of different tops they had amongst them. And they weren't they weren't particularly bad sports about it. I didn't think either. But I don't recall. Yeah, I don't recall ever feeling quite as physically and emotionally drained having touched the ball so infrequently in a game of football. But so I mean, just because I think we can all relate to that, is probably the one that stands out for me.
Yeah, definitely. Daniel, this is you now.
Yeah, so Paul, what would your lowest and highest point be from your time at Northern?
My lowest point, I mean, from a personal point of view, just because I do care about the club, I would say in the not too distant past, I just felt like it's been a little bit of a lost cause, and that's not to say that the Northern has been a lost cause, but I felt a little bit like it's been an uphill battle. I felt like throwing it all in, but I think going back to one of the earlier questions you gave me, I think when you care so much about a football club and you don't quite feel you're giving it everything you should be, you can probably relate to that on the pitch. You haven't put 100% in, but from my point of view, if you're not putting the effort in off the pitch, then I think you need to take a hard look at yourself. And I must admit, I did that probably a couple of 3 seasons ago. A couple of things happened, behind the scenes. I clearly won't go into.
Yeah.
But actually, do you know what? I think that's made me realise how much I do love this club, and it's given me personally a kick up the arse that I needed in terms of driving the club forward. And like I said earlier, having you guys on board, having some fresh blood, some fresh ideas. This podcast, I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. We've got Club Shop, fantastic things to buy in there. Just you guys have opened up a whole new avenue for the club, and I'm really, really grateful for that. We've got you guys on the committee as well. I just feel like as a club, we've literally risen. I don't want to use a cliche of the Phoenix and the Flames, but it was a little bit touch and go behind the scenes in recent years as to whether we had enough desire, passion, drive, and time and commitment to keep the club going. But I'm very, very pleased, proud to say that it doesn't feel like we've been as healthy as many, many years now.
Yeah, so, I mean, I definitely feel like where we are now, and I think it takes people like us 4 here. We all love the club, and we'll all do anything we can. And you need people like that at the core of it, because it then rubs off on everyone else as well. So it's really crucial. But brilliant.
You're absolutely right. So I was just going to say you're right. It's contagious. When I see people you're a good example, Isaac, and Cam obviously, and Dan coming in. When I see younger guys, I talk about the cultural shift over the last sort of 15, 20 years. And you worry you're never going to get that desire and that love, or sort of pass on that desire and love for the club again in Sunday football. But in you guys, I can see it's there, and you especially, Isaac. You're driving things forward, and it's just fantastic to be able to sort of sit back and watch you do what you do.
Well, it's a pleasure to be a part of.
Yeah, we want to thank you for that. Really do.
Yeah, well, if it weren't for this club, I wouldn't have the opportunity, so I owe a lot to it. So, but like I said, so look onto that. We all know as a team as well. You're also a qualified referee, which is great for games when if we have like a pre-season or something when we need a ref. It's a brilliant option to have. But what's it like refereeing Sundays compared to Saturday football? Because obviously, I know the obvious difference in level, but what are the main differences that you see?
Yeah, when you say the differences in levels, I don't necessarily agree that there is, and because of course a lot of those players on a Saturday will play on a Sunday as well.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
And so what are the differences? I think the structure, the club structures. Quite often on a Saturday you're going to clubs that are well established in Saturday football, and therefore there's a slightly higher degree of not sound disrespectful to Sunday clubs, but I guess organisation and structure, I guess, is what I'm saying. A lot of them are very long established. As a referee, the meet and greet is there. It's a requirement. Again, with the Suffolk Ipswich League, there's a meet and greet. There's basic requirements that the referees should receive. Just like I say, meet and greet, drinks, that sort of thing, certain levels. But I think in terms of on the field, I have to say that on a Sunday, it's a little bit more. You never know quite what you're going to get because there is. I know you touched about this in your last podcast. There is this whole sort of it's only Sunday football attitude, and it does go on. And I get, I hate hearing that as a player, and I hate hearing it as a referee, because the laws of the game obviously are the same. The levels of respect should be the same. So, that can reflect. It can make a game much more difficult to referee on a Sunday. But again, you're talking about sort of generics here. Some days you can have fantastic games on a Sunday. Other times it can be a complete nightmare. But likewise for a Saturday, it's all about the players on the day, really.
It's true. No, it's interesting to hear because obviously you all you get from social media, from clubs and from players is you hear players' opinions and players' statements and people's opinions, but you don't actually get to hear, a referee's point of view it's really nice to hear that because you like I say that you don't often get a voice, do you? So it's quite nice to hear.
I will tell you something, and I'll just try and dispel a myth. Well, you'll never do it. Let me tell you something. Referees, myself included, never ever have a bias, not an intentional bias, because we're all humans. So there's human elements to everything. But the day that I ever go into a game and I think, right, I'm going to stitch this team up or this person or whatever, is the day I'll hang up a whistle, because what's the point in that?
You're right.
If you lose the integrity from the game, then what are you left with?
Yeah, it's true. Right. Yeah, we'll just as I say, so we're pushing for time, so I'll hand over to Cam for the next question.
Yeah, you talk about reffing, Mossy, but there was a time not too long ago where you were required to ref a game that we were playing. So we were playing another team and you with the ref. What was the mentality when you turned up for that day, when you knew that you were going to have to referee your own team?
That was against Feathers. No, Trinity.
Trinity.
Yeah. So. Again, I hate sounding like a typical referee, but there's the but. I genuinely go into every game and not having a bias, and of course I know all you guys, but let me tell you something, it's not something I enjoy going into refereeing my own team, because any critical decisions I make against my team, obviously I'm going to have to face up to these guys and play alongside them the following week potentially. So the game itself was an absolute cracker cracking game, absolutely cracking game, and I dare say anyone listening from Trinity wouldn't necessarily agree. Because, are you going to? Do you want me to go into the details of what happened in that game very briefly?
Yeah. Just go briefly what happened. Yeah, just.
So I think I'm right in saying I'm going to say you, not we, were 2-0 up. Northern were 2-0 up.
Yeah.
Within sort of 10 minutes, and to me it was going to be double figures. You were absolutely annihilated. And needless to say, I think it came back to 2-2. Then I think we went 3-2 down, and maybe 3-3. I'm not sure if it ended. And then I think they went 4-3 up.
Yeah.
And then Mickey Warwick was on the line. They put the ball in from the byline, and they scored from it. I think would have made it 5-3. I think I'm right saying that.
Yeah.
Mickey had his flag up, and I remember thinking, "Oh, don't do this to me, Mickey." I was gutted, obviously they scored, but went over there, and Mickey was sure the ball was out of play, and of course I've gone with him, disallowed the goal, I've taken dog's abuse for that. Understandably, I think I booked someone. I could have sent him off for what he said to me. But I understand passions are high. And then, of course, going through into the final minute, I think you end up with the ball in the box, Isaac. And I can see, as a referee, sometimes you can see a tackle coming in from a mile off. And you think, here we go. Not you're looking at it, but you can just see it coming. It had everything. It was the injury time. So this clumsy tackle comes in. Isaac, I think you see it coming. You fall under the challenge. It was heavy. It was mistimed. And of course, I blow for the pen, and that gets dispatched. I think that was the final kick of the game, wasn't it? I think it's
it was.
And of course, their player just cannot contain himself. And I'm fairly laid back, but the amount of abuse I got, so I think I gave someone his marching orders there and then as well. And so you're in a situation as a referee, you're chairman and player of this club, you're refereeing, you've just given them a last minute equalising penalty, send one of their players off. It's, if you're the opposition, you're going mad, aren't you? You're going mad about that.
Yeah,
but was it a pen?
Yes, definitely was a penalty. I agree. Yeah. Dan, you got a final question that you can fire us off with?
So, for this upcoming season, whenever that may be, what are your aspirations for the club next season?
So my aspirations, again, I listened to your aspirations on the previous podcast, and I can't disagree with any of them. However, with my chairman's hat on, which is my dominant hat, I would say. Stability off the pitch, the continuity in terms of people turning up, paying up. I've got to slip that in there, haven't I?
Yeah.
pay your dues, turn up, pay up, and just put your very best into it. And as a committee, we'll keep the club running, and you'll have the opportunity to turn out on a Sunday morning and kick a ball around for 90 minutes because. As far as I'm concerned, that's the priority is enabling that to happen.
100%. Yeah. So, can't thank you enough, Paul. I mean, to be honest, that's been really interesting. It's been really nice to hear some stories of some sort of past, present, all mixing together. It's been really interesting. So, thank you very much for coming on and doing this interview with us.
Yeah, no problem. I really appreciate the opportunity. And apologies if I've waffled a little bit.
No, it's been really interesting. So it's been worth listening to. So, Cam, do you want to sign us out?
Yep. Thank you very much for listening this week, everybody. We'll be back next week with another podcast. It's goodbye from me. Goodbye from Isaac.
Good evening, good night.
Goodbye from Dan.
Goodbye, and remember, if you have any questions you want us to talk in a podcast anytime soon, just leave it in the comments and we'll get onto it at one point. But thank you for listening.
And goodbye from Paul Mossy.
Thank you very much, and don't forget, guys, pay your money.
Good night, everyone.
Goodbye.
Good night.